The council chamber was massive, built to hold representatives from dozens of different worlds. The ceiling stretched so high that clouds sometimes formed near the top. Floating platforms held delegates from species that lived in water, while others sat in chairs designed for their unique bodies. Some had scales, some had fur, and some were made of pure energy contained in special suits. Ambassador Lisa Morrison stood at the speaker's platform in the center of it all. She wore her formal Earth uniform, dark blue with silver buttons. Her hands rested on the podium as she looked out at the sea of alien faces. Some were watching her with curiosity. Most looked bored or annoyed. She had prepared her speech for weeks. Earth wanted a seat on the Security Committee, the group that made the biggest decisions in the galaxy. Humans had been part of the galactic community for 30 years now. They had helped other worlds, shared their technology, and tried to be good neighbors. Lisa thought they had earned this. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice carried by translators to every corner of the room. "Earth comes before you today with respect and hope. We have worked hard to prove ourselves as members of this community. We have sent aid to struggling colonies. We have shared our medical advances. We have helped solve conflicts peacefully." Before she could continue, a tall reptilian figure rose from his seat. This was Zarthan, the Vexorian ambassador. His scales were dark green and his eyes were cold. "The council recognizes Ambassador Zarthan," the speaker announced. Zarthan's voice was sharp. "I must object to this proposal. Humans have only been traveling in space for a handful of decades. They are children compared to the rest of us. More importantly, they are dangerous children." Lisa felt her jaw tighten, but said nothing. This was politics. She had expected opposition. Another delegate floated forward, a jellyfish-like creature from Kelthia. "I agree with my colleague. Humans nearly destroyed their own planet before they learned to travel in space. They fought wars over resources, land, and ideas. Their history is written in blood." A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber. Lisa saw other delegates nodding or making gestures of approval in their own ways. She tried again. "We don't deny our past, but we have learned from it. We have changed. We have been peaceful members of this community." "Peaceful?" Zarthan laughed, a hissing sound that the translator rendered clearly. "You call yourselves peaceful, but your soldiers still train for war. Your ships still carry weapons. You are predators pretending to be tame." The Zephyrian ambassador, a being of crystalline structure that caught the light, spoke up. "Humanity should not be given more power. If anything, we should limit their influence. They are too emotional, too quick to act. They cannot be trusted with important decisions." Lisa looked around the chamber. She could see it in their faces, in their body language. They had already made up their minds before she even spoke. Earth's application would be rejected. The vote came quickly. Only 3 delegates voted in favor of Earth. 44 voted against. The rejection stung, but Lisa had prepared herself for it. What came next was worse. Zarthan stood again. "I propose we go further. Humans should be banned from participating in military or peacekeeping operations throughout galactic space. Their aggressive nature makes them unsuitable for such responsibilities." Lisa's eyes went wide. "That is completely unreasonable. We have never given you cause to—" "You exist," Zarthan interrupted. "That is cause enough. Your entire species is built for violence. Your bodies are designed for hunting. Your minds are wired for conflict. We do not need such creatures in positions where they could do harm." The debate that followed was painful to watch. Delegate after delegate stood to voice their concerns about humanity. They called humans warlike, unstable, primitive, and dangerous. Some spoke of human history, pointing to wars and conflicts. Others talked about human emotions, claiming they made humans unpredictable. Lisa tried to defend her people, but her words seemed to bounce off the walls without effect. The other delegates had already decided what humans were, and no speech would change that. As the vote approached, Lisa felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned to see Ambassador Kyle Bennett, Earth's military liaison. He was a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes. He had been a pilot once before becoming a diplomat. "Let me try something," Kyle said quietly. Lisa wanted to tell him no. The vote was lost. There was no point in making things worse. But something in Kyle's expression made her step aside. Kyle walked to the podium and inserted a small data chip into the holographic display system. The lights in the chamber dimmed automatically. "Before you vote," Kyle said, his voice steady and quiet, "there is something you should see." Zar then laughed again. "What could you possibly show us that would matter? Your kind have already shown us what they are." Other delegates joined in the laughter. Some were openly mocking now, making jokes to their neighbors. They thought this was desperation from a defeated species. Kyle pressed a button. The massive holographic display filled with an image. A timestamp appeared at the top. 15 years ago. The laughter began to fade as the delegates recognized the location. It was Kelthian Colony Outpost 7, a mining settlement on a distant moon. Many in the chamber remembered what had happened there. It had been a tragedy, a disaster. Thousands of Kelthians had been killed or taken as slaves. The Galactic Defense Force had been too far away to help in time. The video began to play. The chamber fell completely silent. On the screen, Kelthian families walked through their colony, unaware of what was about to happen. Children played in the streets, workers headed to the mines. It was a normal, peaceful day. Then the sky filled with ships. Dozens of them, black and angular. Skrull warships, raiders and slavers, the worst criminals in the galaxy. Kyle let the video play without comment. Everyone in the chamber knew this story. They knew how it ended. Or at least they thought they did. The Skrull began their attack. Weapons fire lit up the colony. Kelthians ran for shelter, screaming in terror. It was chaos and horror. Then something unexpected appeared on the screen. A small ship entered the atmosphere. It was barely bigger than a transport shuttle. The registry on its hull read Dawn Runner, and below that, Earth Registry. A woman's voice came through the speakers, calm and clear. "This is Captain Diana Hayes of the Dawn Runner. We are receiving distress signals from the colony. What is your situation?" The Kelthian response was frantic. "Human ship, stay away! We are under attack! Multiple Skrull warships! You must leave!" Every eye in the council chamber was now fixed on the screen. The delegates had stopped laughing. They watched as the small Earth ship changed course, turning directly toward the battle below. Kyle Bennett stood at the podium, his face calm. "This is what humans are," he said quietly. "Watch and judge for yourselves." The video continued playing on the massive display. Every delegate in the council chamber watched in silence. The small Earth ship, the Dawn Runner, flew straight toward the Skrull warships that were attacking the Kelthian colony. Captain Diana Hayes appeared on screen. She was in her 30s with short dark hair and focused eyes. She sat in the captain's chair of what was clearly a cargo vessel, not a warship. Behind her, the bridge was small and cramped. This was not a military ship. It was just a transport that carried supplies between colonies. "Chris, what do we have to work with?" Diana asked. A man appeared next to her. This was Chris Palmer, her first officer. He looked at a screen and shook his head. "One shuttle in the cargo bay, 12 crew members total. Mining equipment we were supposed to deliver to Station 12. No weapons, no armor plating, no shields worth mentioning." Diana nodded slowly. "And how long until the Defense Force gets here?" 3 days minimum," Chris replied. His voice was tight with stress. "Captain, we can't fight them. We'll be destroyed in minutes." The Skrull warships on screen were huge compared to the Dawn Runner. There were at least 20 of them. Their weapons were already firing on the colony below. Buildings exploded. People ran through the streets in panic. Diana stood up from her chair. "We're not going to fight them. We're going to distract them." She moved to the communications console and opened a channel on all frequencies. When she spoke again, her voice was different. It was loud, confident, almost aggressive. "Attention Skrull vessels. This is Commander Hayes of Galactic Defense Force Advanced Scout Dawn Runner. You are ordered to cease your attack immediately and prepare to be boarded. A full battle fleet is 3 minutes behind us. Surrender now or be destroyed." In the council chamber, several delegates gasped. The Kelthian ambassador leaned forward in his seat, his tentacles quivering. On screen, the Skrull ships didn't respond at first. They kept attacking the colony. But Diana didn't stop. She pushed the Dawn Runner's engines to full speed, racing directly at the largest Skrull warship. "Fire warning shots across their bow," she ordered. "Captain, we don't have weapons," Chris reminded her. "Then vent some atmosphere. Make it look like weapons fire. Do something that shows up on their sensors." The Dawn Runner released bursts of compressed gas and debris from its cargo holds. On sensors, it might have looked like warning shots from a military vessel. The Skrull finally responded. 4 of their warships broke away from the attack on the colony and turned toward the Dawn Runner. They were coming to investigate. "It's working," Chris said. "They're coming for us." Diana smiled grimly. "Good. That's 4 ships not shooting at civilians. Helm, prepare for evasive maneuvers. Make them work for it." What happened next was difficult to watch. The Dawn Runner twisted and turned through space, dodging weapons fire from 4 Skrull warships. Diana pushed her ship to its limits and beyond. The hull groaned under the stress. Systems sparked and failed. But she kept flying, kept dodging, kept drawing the Skrull away from the colony. Meanwhile, something else was happening on the ground. The video split into 2 screens. One showed the space battle, the other showed the colony surface. A small shuttle had landed near the colony's main shelter complex. 6 humans emerged, carrying tools and equipment. They wore simple work suits, not combat armor. A woman led the group. Her name tag read Amy Rodriguez. She was young, maybe 25, with her hair tied back. She carried a large industrial cutting tool over her shoulder. Next to her was a man named Steve Mitchell. He had a case of mining explosives and a determined look on his face. "Okay, people, listen up," Amy said to her team. "We're not soldiers. We're cargo haulers and engineers. But right now, we're all these people have. Our job is simple. Get as many Kelthians into the underground shelters as possible. Hold off the Skrull ground forces long enough for help to arrive." "That's 3 days," someone pointed out. "Then we hold for 3 days," Amy replied. The Skrull had already landed ground forces. Hundreds of raiders were moving through the colony, capturing Kelthians and loading them onto transport ships. They were heavily armed and experienced fighters. The 6 humans split up. Amy and Steve headed toward a group of Kelthian families trapped in a collapsed building. The others moved to different parts of the colony. Amy used her cutting tool to slice through the rubble. It wasn't designed as a weapon, but when a Skrull raider appeared around a corner, she swung it like a club. The heavy tool connected with the raider's head, dropping him instantly. "Sorry," she muttered, then went back to cutting through the debris. "Hello? Can anyone hear me? We're here to help." Kelthian voices called out from below. Amy and Steve worked frantically to clear the entrance to the shelter. When they finally broke through, dozens of Kelthian civilians poured out. "Follow us," Steve said. "We know where the deep shelters are. You'll be safe there." They led the group through the ruined streets. More Skrull appeared. Steve set up a mining charge at a narrow passage and waited. When the raiders came through, he triggered the explosion. The passage collapsed, blocking their path and buying precious time. In space, the Dawn Runner was still running. The ship was badly damaged now. Hull breaches on 3 decks, life support failing, but Diana kept flying. "Captain, we can't take much more of this," Chris reported. His face was bleeding from a cut above his eye. "The engines are about to give out." Diana looked at her screens. The Skrull ships were closing in. In a few more minutes, they would destroy the Dawn Runner. But those were minutes that the colony didn't have before. On the ground, Amy and her team had managed to get hundreds of Kelthians into the deep shelters. But there were thousands more still in danger. The Skrull were everywhere now. An engineer named Paul Martinez had made his way to the colony's power station. He was doing something with the reactor controls, his hands moving quickly over the panels. "What are you doing?" a Kelthian worker asked him. "Making them think help is coming," Paul replied. "I'm going to make this reactor pulse energy in a pattern that looks like incoming ships. Lots of incoming ships. Maybe it will make them nervous." He worked for 20 minutes while weapons fire echoed through the colony. Finally, he activated his program. The reactor began sending out false energy signatures. On Skrull sensors, it would look like a fleet of ships was approaching through jump space. In space, Diana saw the Skrull ships hesitate. Their attack patterns changed. They were checking their sensors, confused by the energy readings. "They're not sure if the fleet is real," Chris said, "but they're going to figure it out soon." Diana looked at her crew. They were battered and exhausted. The ship was falling apart around them. They had bought the colony maybe 6 hours. It wasn't enough. Help was still days away. She made a decision. "Chris, get everyone to the shuttle. Abandon ship." "What are you going to do?" Diana didn't answer. She was already plotting a course directly toward the Skrull flagship. In the council chamber, the delegates watched in stunned silence. They knew what was about to happen. They could see it on Diana's face. Diana Hayes sat alone on the bridge of the Dawn Runner. Her crew had evacuated in the shuttle. They had argued with her, begged her to come with them, but she refused. Someone needed to pilot the ship, and she wouldn't ask anyone else to do what she was about to do. The Skrull flagship was massive. It hung in space like a dark mountain, its weapons still firing on the colony below. Diana aimed her damaged ship straight at its docking bay. The bay doors were open with smaller ships coming and going. She pushed the Dawn Runner's failing engines to maximum. The ship shuddered and groaned, but kept accelerating. Alarms blared throughout the bridge. Red lights flashed everywhere. The hull temperature was rising dangerously high. The Skrull noticed her approach too late. They tried to close the docking bay doors, but Diana was already too close. The Dawn Runner smashed through the entrance and crashed deep into the flagship's interior. Diana had one last task. She activated the ship's reactor overload sequence. In 30 seconds, the reactor would explode. She sat back in her chair and closed her eyes. In the council chamber, the delegates watched the massive Skrull flagship break apart from the inside. The explosion tore through its core systems. Secondary explosions rippled along its hull. The great ship split in half and began to fall toward the moon below. The other Skrull warships saw their flagship die. They panicked. Without their leader and command ship, the raiders fled. They jumped to faster-than-light speed and disappeared, abandoning their attack. On the colony surface, Amy Rodriguez and the other humans saw the sky clear. The Skrull ships were gone. They had won. They had actually won. Amy sat down hard on the ground, exhausted. Around her, Kelthian civilians emerged from the shelters. They were alive. Thousands of them, alive because 12 humans had refused to run away. The video showed the Galactic Defense Force arriving hours later. They found the colony damaged but intact. Most of the population had survived, and they found the human crew injured and exhausted but still helping with rescue efforts. The video also showed them finding the wreckage of the Dawn Runner scattered across the Skrull flagship's debris. They found Diana Hayes still strapped in her captain's chair. She had died instantly in the explosion. The last thing recorded from her ship was her voice, calm and clear. For the colony. The council chamber was absolutely silent. Several delegates were openly weeping. The Kelthian ambassador had his head bowed, his tentacles wrapped around himself. Ambassador Kyle Bennett let the silence stretch for a moment. Then he pressed another button on the display. "That was 15 years ago," Kyle said quietly. "Would you like to see what happened 12 years ago?" A new video began. This one showed a research station orbiting a gas giant. The sign identified it as Zephyrian Research Station Beta 9. It was a beautiful facility, all glass and metal, designed for studying the storms in the planet below. The timestamp appeared. 12 years ago. The station's daily routine played out on screen. Scientists from different species worked together in laboratories. In one lab, 2 humans could be seen working alongside Zephyrian researchers. One was a woman in her 40s named Dr. Kate Sullivan. The other was a man named Rick Donovan, head of station security for the Earth Science team. Then pirates appeared. 3 ships surrounded the station and demanded access. When the station refused, the pirates began cutting through the outer hull. The station's automated systems sent out a distress call. The nearest patrol ship was 8 hours away. The pirates would control the station in less than 1 hour. Dr. Sullivan was in the main lab when the alarms went off. Around her, Zephyrian scientists panicked. They were researchers, not fighters. Most had never even seen violence before. Kate moved to a computer terminal and started typing rapidly. "Listen to me," she said to the Zephyrians around her. "We need to destroy all the research data. If the pirates get it, they can sell it to the highest bidder. Some of this research is dangerous in the wrong hands." Rick Donovan appeared at the lab entrance. He was carrying a makeshift weapon, just a metal pipe from the maintenance area. "Doctor, we need to evacuate this section. The pirates are coming through Deck 7. "We can't evacuate," Kate replied, still typing. "Not until the data is destroyed. It will take 10 more minutes." Rick looked at the frightened Zephyrian scientists. They were crystalline beings, beautiful but fragile. They had no idea how to fight. "Then we make our stand here. Everyone, grab anything that can be used as a weapon. Tools, chairs, whatever you can find." For the next hour, the video showed something incredible. Rick Donovan, a civilian security officer, taught terrified alien scientists how to defend themselves. He showed them where to stand to create a defensive position. He taught them how to use the station's own systems against the pirates. Kate Sullivan proved to be just as resourceful. She used her knowledge of the station's design to seal off sections, vent atmosphere in corridors where pirates were advancing, and create false sensor readings that sent the pirates running to the wrong locations. At one point, a group of pirates cornered Rick and 6 Zephyrian researchers in a storage room. Rick had only his metal pipe. The pirates had energy weapons. Rick stood in front of the Zephyrians and smiled at the pirates. "You know what the problem with energy weapons is on a station like this?" he asked. "One wrong shot and you breach the hull. We all die. But this pipe," he hefted it, "this pipe is perfectly safe." The pirates realized he was right. On a research station with thin walls, their weapons were too dangerous to use. Rick charged forward before they could figure out an alternative. The fight was short and brutal. Rick won, though he took several injuries doing it. Kate's work destroying the data took longer than expected. She had to make sure everything was completely erased. While she worked, Rick and the Zephyrian scientists held the pirates back through clever tactics and desperate courage. When the patrol ship finally arrived, they found the station still under the control of its crew. Dr. Kate Sullivan had successfully destroyed all sensitive data. Rick Donovan had managed to capture 3 pirates and trap the rest in sealed sections of the station. 47 Zephyrian researchers were alive because 2 humans had refused to abandon them. The video ended. Ambassador Kyle looked around the council chamber. The delegates were watching him now with different eyes. The mockery was gone. The laughter had died. "Do you want to see more?" Kyle asked. "I have dozens of these videos. Hundreds, actually. Everyone shows the same thing." Ordinary humans doing extraordinary things because someone needed help. He pulled up a list on the display. Dozens of incidents scrolled past. Each one had a human name attached to it. Nicole Grant, Ben Carter, Laura Kim. Regular people who had made impossible choices. Kyle Bennett played another video without waiting for permission. The council chamber was so quiet that every breath could be heard. The delegates sat frozen, their attention completely focused on the display. This video showed a habitat station slowly tumbling through space. The structure was damaged, with fire visible through several windows. The registry identified it as a Vexorian civilian station, home to over 2,000 families. 9 years ago, Kyle said, Station 12 suffered a reactor malfunction. The stabilizers failed and the station began to spin out of control. Everyone was ordered to evacuate. On screen, evacuation ships were pulling away from the dying station. Ship after ship carried Vexorian families to safety. But there was a problem. The last evacuation ship had mechanical failures. It was stuck in the docking bay with 300 Vexorians still aboard, including many children. A small human cargo ship appeared on screen. Its name was the Morning Star. The captain was a trader named Nicole Grant, a woman in her 50s who transported medical supplies between stations. Nicole's voice came through the audio. Station 12, this is the Morning Star. I see you have a stuck evacuation ship. I'm coming in to help. The station's reply was desperate. Human ship, stay back. The reactor is going to explode in less than 30 minutes. The radiation levels are already lethal. You'll die if you dock. Nicole's response was simple. Then I guess I better hurry. She brought her ship alongside the damaged station. The station was spinning, making docking nearly impossible. But Nicole matched the rotation perfectly and locked her ship to the docking port near the trapped evacuation ship. She pulled on a radiation suit and made her way through the dangerous station corridors. The video showed her running through smoke and fire, her radiation counter screaming warnings the whole time. She reached the evacuation ship and worked on its mechanical failure. Nicole was a trader, not an engineer. But she had spent decades in space. She knew ships inside and out. Her hands moved quickly, bypassing damaged systems and rerouting power. After 15 minutes of desperate work, the evacuation ship's engines came back online. "Go, go, go!" Nicole shouted. "Get those people out of here!" The evacuation ship pulled away from the station. 300 Vexorians were safe. But Nicole was still inside the dying station. Her ship was still docked. She ran back through the corridors, but the damage was spreading fast. A hull breach blocked her path. She had to find another route. The radiation counter showed deadly levels. Her suit's protection wouldn't last much longer. Nicole made it back to her ship with less than 5 minutes to spare. She undocked and fired her engines to maximum, racing away from the station. Behind her, the reactor finally exploded. The blast wave caught her ship and sent it tumbling, but the Morning Star's hull held. Nicole survived. The video showed her ship limping to the nearest medical station. Nicole was suffering from severe radiation poisoning. She spent the next 6 months in treatment. Her hair fell out, she lost weight, but she lived, and so did the 300 Vexorians she had saved. In the council chamber, the Vexorian ambassador, Tsar Then, was staring at the screen. His hands were shaking. Kyle played another video. This one showed a human medical team responding to a plague outbreak on a Thelonian colony world. The disease was highly contagious and deadly. The colonial government had quarantined the entire planet to prevent the plague from spreading to other worlds. 2 human doctors, Laura Kim and Ben Carter, volunteered to enter the quarantine zone. They knew they might never leave. Once inside the zone, they would be trapped until the plague burned itself out or killed everyone. Laura and Ben worked for 8 months in the plague zone. They treated thousands of sick Thelonians. They slept only a few hours each night. They risked infection every single day. The video showed them moving from bed to bed in crowded hospitals, never stopping, never resting. Both doctors eventually caught the plague. Laura recovered after 3 weeks of illness. Ben nearly died. But they had done something incredible. They had identified the source of the plague and developed a treatment. Their work saved an entire colony world. Over 50,000 Thelonians survived because 2 humans had walked into a death trap armed with nothing but medical knowledge and courage. Another video played. This one showed human cargo pilots flying into a war zone to evacuate trapped Vexorian soldiers. The pilots weren't military. They flew civilian ships, but they made run after run under heavy fire, pulling out soldiers who would have otherwise been captured or killed. Another video showed a human engineer named Paul Martinez, who spent 16 hours in hard vacuum repairing a colony ship's life support system. The ship was carrying 5,000 Kelthian refugees. When the life support failed, Paul went outside with just his tools and his suit. He worked in the killing cold of space, his hands going numb, his air supply running low. He fixed the system and saved every refugee aboard. The videos kept coming. Each one showed humans making impossible choices. A human teacher who stayed behind during an evacuation to help frightened alien children reach safety. A human mechanic who gave up his seat on the last escape shuttle so an injured Zephyrian could escape. A human pilot who flew her damaged ship into an asteroid to prevent it from hitting a populated colony. Ambassador Lisa Morrison stepped forward to stand beside Kyle. She looked out at the council with steady eyes. "You called us warlike," she said softly. "You called us dangerous. You said we were too violent, too emotional, too primitive to be trusted. And maybe you're right about some of those things. We are emotional. We do feel things deeply. When we see someone in trouble, we don't always stop to think about the risk. We just act." She paused, letting her words sink in. "But we're not monsters. We're not the enemy. We're people who have learned a simple truth. The universe is dangerous enough without us turning our backs on each other. We fight not because we enjoy violence, but because sometimes fighting is the only way to protect those who can't protect themselves." Kyle added, "Every human in these videos could have walked away. They could have saved themselves. No one would have blamed them. But they didn't walk away. They stayed. They fought. They helped. Many of them died doing it." The council chamber remained silent. Delegates looked at each other, then back at the display where the final video had frozen on the image of Diana Hayes moments before her ship exploded. Her face was calm. She looked almost peaceful, knowing what she was about to do. The Kelthian ambassador slowly rose from his seat. His tentacles trembled, and his voice was thick with emotion. The Kelthian ambassador stood at his platform, his tentacles still trembling. The entire council chamber waited for him to speak. When he finally found his voice, it was barely above a whisper. "I was there," he said. "At Outpost 7. I was a child when the Skrull attacked." He paused, struggling with the memory. "I remember the sky filling with ships. I remember my parents screaming at me to run. The Skrull were everywhere. They were taking people, hurting people. I was so scared I couldn't move." The Kelthian ambassador's voice grew stronger. "A human woman found me hiding under debris. She was injured. I could see blood on her suit, but she picked me up and carried me to the underground shelters. Her name was Diana Hayes. She carried me through fire and explosions. When we reached the shelter, my parents were already inside. They were injured, but alive." He looked directly at the human delegation. "Diana Hayes went back outside. She said there were more people to save. I never saw her again, but I'm alive because she didn't run away. My parents are alive because of her crew. Thousands of my people survived because 12 humans decided that strangers were worth dying for." The chamber remained silent. The Kelthian ambassador sat down slowly, his tentacles wrapped tight around himself. Another delegate stood up. This was the Zypharian representative who had voted against humanity earlier. Her crystalline form caught the light as she moved. "I was at Research Station Beta 9, she said quietly. "I was a young researcher then, studying quantum physics, When the pirates came, I hid under my desk like a coward. I was sure I was going to die." She looked at the display where Dr. Kate Sullivan's face was frozen on screen. Dr. Sullivan found me. She told me to get up, to be brave, to help defend what we had built. Rick Donovan showed me how to hold a weapon. I had never even touched anything designed to hurt someone before. He was so patient, so calm. He made me believe we could survive. The Zephyrian's voice cracked slightly. I voted against humans today because I was afraid. I knew what they were capable of. I had seen Rick fight 3 armed pirates with nothing but a metal pipe. I had watched Kate Sullivan outsmart trained criminals using only her mind. They were so strong, so fierce. I thought if humans could be that dangerous, we should keep them far away from power. She turned to face the human delegation directly. I was wrong. I should have been grateful for their strength, not afraid of it. They saved 47 of us that day. They could have evacuated. They should have evacuated. But they stayed. One by one, other delegates stood to speak. A Vexorian military commander talked about human cargo pilots who had flown into a war zone to rescue his trapped soldiers. A Thelonian medical official spoke about Laura Kim and Ben Carter, the doctors who had walked into a plague zone knowing they might never come out. Each delegate told a story. Each story was about humans helping someone, saving someone, protecting someone who wasn't even their own species. Finally, Zar then stood. The Vexorian ambassador who had led the opposition against humanity looked older now, tired. He stared at the frozen image of Nicole Grant running through a radiation-filled station to save 300 Vexorian children. "I called humans dangerous," Zar then said slowly. "I was correct, but I misunderstood what that meant. A fire is dangerous. A storm is dangerous. A strong current is dangerous. But these things can also save lives, protect people, give warmth and power." He looked around the chamber. Humans are dangerous the way a father is dangerous when protecting his children, the way a mother is dangerous when defending her home. They have strength, yes. They have violence in them, yes. But they use it to protect, not destroy. They channel it toward saving lives, not taking them. Zar then bowed his head toward Lisa Morrison. "I was afraid of humanity because I saw their capacity for war. I should have seen their capacity for sacrifice. I apologize to all humans for my blindness." The chamber erupted in movement. Delegates were standing, gesturing, calling out. The Speaker of the Council had to bang his staff 3 times to restore order. "The Council will now vote," the Speaker announced. "The question before us is whether Earth should receive a permanent seat on the Security Committee. All those in favor?" Every single delegate voted yes. All 47 of them. Even Zar then raised his hand high. The Speaker continued. "The proposal to ban humans from military and peacekeeping operations is now before us. All those in favor?" Not a single hand went up. The proposal died without a single vote. Then something unexpected happened. The Vexorian military commander stood and made a new proposal. "I move that we not only allow human participation in peacekeeping operations, but that we formally request Earth to train our own forces in their methods. We need to learn what they know, how to stay calm under pressure, how to protect civilians, how to refuse to give up even when the situation seems hopeless." The vote on that proposal was also unanimous. Ambassador Lisa Morrison stood at the podium again, but this time the chamber was filled with applause. Some delegates were clapping. Others were making their own species gestures of respect and approval. The sound filled the massive room. Lisa waited for the noise to fade. When she spoke, her voice was clear and strong. "Thank you. We won't let you down. We will continue to do what humans have always done. We will help where we can. We will protect those who need protection. We will stand up when others need someone to stand with them." Kyle Bennett added quietly, And we will never, ever abandon someone who needs help. That's not who we are. The council session ended shortly after. But the delegates didn't leave immediately. They gathered around the human delegation, wanting to talk, to ask questions, to share their own stories of human courage and kindness. The Kelthian ambassador approached Lisa with tears in his large eyes. "Thank you for bringing these videos. My people have never forgotten what the crew of the Dawn Runner did for us. We hold a ceremony every year on the anniversary. We say their names and remember their sacrifice." Lisa felt her own eyes getting wet. They would be honored. Far across the galaxy, on Earth and human colonies scattered among the stars, ordinary people were going about their ordinary lives. They were flying cargo ships and working in hospitals and teaching in schools. They had no idea that the entire galactic community had just seen videos of their heroism. They wouldn't have cared much anyway. To them, they had simply done what needed to be done. Someone needed help, so they helped. Someone was in danger, so they stepped in. It was just that simple. Ambassador Kyle Bennett watched the council delegates talking and laughing with his fellow humans. He thought about Diana Hayes and her crew. He thought about all the humans who had given everything to protect strangers. They had changed the galaxy's view of humanity not through speeches or politics, but through simple actions. They had shown that humans weren't monsters to be feared. They were friends to be trusted, protectors to be grateful for, heroes who would never leave anyone behind, and that made all the difference.